All right, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about in detail the best rare DPS champion in Raid Shadow Legends, and that is, of course, going to end up being Coldheart. Now, in my opinion, Coldheart is definitely going to be in the top 3 overall rare champions, but when it comes to specifically DPS, in my opinion, she's the best, and it's going to be in particular from one really important skill that I don't think people really have talked about as much as I would think they would. There's a very particular property about this skill that makes it so unbelievably good, and there's a few other champions that also have this kind of skill, and they're all really useful. Now, with that being said, today I wanted to go over an overall guide for Coldheart, talk about her skills, abilities, gear, masteries, all that sort of stuff, and, hopefully this will help you guys out. So with that being said, let's first of all move into skills and booking, and also talk about this one particular skill in detail that is going to make her so unbelievably good when it comes to her DPS. So let me actually pull up my Coldheart here in the champion menu, and we'll go to the skills. Now, Coldheart only has 3 skills, but they're all actually pretty darn good. And something very surprising about Coldheart is how much she actually offers, not just in terms of overall DPS, AoE DPS, single target DPS of course, but also some other buffs and utility. She offers a lot to the table for a single champion, especially given that she is only a rare. So we have her first skill, attacks 4 times at random. Each hit has a 25% chance of placing a 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. So something really cool about this skill, even though it is attacked 4 times at random, so if you're facing multiple enemies at the same time, you don't know what enemies this skill is going to land on. When you're only facing one enemy at the same time, like for example the clan boss, then you know that this skill is going to hit the clan boss 4 times, which means that it's going to get an insane amount of benefit from Giant Slayer. So this skill, even though it attacks 4 times at random, it's still a skill that hits 4 times, which is going to end up being very useful for the clan boss. It also has the added heal reduction debuff as well, which is some extra utility. Really nice to have. Then you have her second skill, attacks all enemies, has a 30% chance of placing a 50% decrease accuracy debuff for 1 turn, places a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns if the target is under a heal reduction debuff. So this skill has a lot going on for it. It is an AoE, which of course you can lower the cooldown with skill books as well, which is really nice. And it has a lot for an AoE. It has that decreased accuracy debuff, which generally in my opinion isn't going to be as strong as a decreased defense or attack debuff, but still, considering how much else this champion offers to the table, having that additional decreased accuracy debuff is really nice to have. And it also has that poison debuff if the target is under a heal reduction, which is probably going to be the case if you've built your champion properly to have enough accuracy, and also because of the auto attack, it has that chance to apply a heal reduction debuff. So when you've been using the skill 1 enough, the enemies that you're facing should already have that heal reduction debuff, which means they should benefit from this skill by getting that poison debuff applied to them as well. So another very nice skill, and it is an AoE. And finally, you have her third skill, which is going to have this property that makes it unbelievably good. And any champions that really have skills similar to this, that have this property, are all going to be very high DPS. And that is the Heart Seeker skill. Attacks 1 enemy, fully depletes the turn meter, has an extra 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Damage increases according to enemy max HP. And that last part is going to be that special property that makes this skill so unbelievably powerful. It's because this skill does not just benefit from your own gear. Of course, you can always end up increasing the power of your champions by gearing them up, getting more stats. That's going to make their skills hit harder. But this skill right here specifically benefits, and actually the damage of it is going to increase based off of the actual max HP of the enemies that you're facing. So if the enemies that you're facing have even more HP, such for example, if you're doing high level dungeons, or if you are doing any kind of content where you're fighting stuff that has lots of HP compared to other aspects of the game, like maybe the campaign, for example, is going to be a place where things don't really have a ton of HP, at least compared to, like level 20 dungeons or whatnot. This skill is going to hit incredibly hard, and you can specifically gear it out. You're really going to want to focus on critical damage because of this skill. Because it scales specifically off of enemy HP, you're not going to gain quite as much benefit from stacking a bunch of attack, and you're really going to want to go hard on critical damage, because that is going to make this skill explode when it comes to the actual amount of damage that it does. Now it also has some extra added utility as well, fully depletes the turn meter. That's going to come in extremely handy in situations where they're going to benefit from that, and also it has an extra 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit, which means you can actually gear out your Coldheart with this in mind so that you can actually cap it out at a 70% crit rate instead of a 100% crit rate because of this property right here. So overall, Coldheart for a DPS champion, absolutely insanely powerful, offers a lot of damage to the table, so much for a rare, and overall just an absolutely unbelievable champion. And considering that she is a rare as well, that is another benefit when it comes to the skills, is that you're definitely going to want to skill book her. She doesn't have any kind of drawback. Some champions, of course, will have the drawback where you actually don't want to skill book them because they might actually get weaker depending on what the skill books do. Definitely not going to be the case for Coldheart, and because she is a rare champion, you don't have to use epic or legendary books, and you can just end up using your rare skill books, which you end up getting a whole lot of them just throughout playing the game. So very, very strong in that regard. So that's going to be the skill analysis and booking. Now let's move into the actual masteries, and I'll show you guys what I actually chose. But the masteries that I chose are not going to be the only choice. There are, of course, always going to be alternatives, especially if you decide to focus a champion in one particular aspect of the game instead of another. The good news about Coldheart is she's really good in multiple aspects of the game. She's going to be good when it comes to the clan boss because of that skill 1 and her poison. She's going to be good in dungeons because of the amount of damage she does based off of HP. She's just going to be good overall. You can even turn her into a solid campaign farmer, so going to be a very versatile champion. Now let's actually go into the masteries, and I'll show you guys what I actually chose. Now I almost always go down the offense and support tree just because I feel like the defense tree for almost all situations is going to be a little bit weak. But when it comes to the offense tree, for our first choice here, always going to go with 5% increased crit rate, never going to end up taking that. For the support, I ended up going with the accuracy, which is going to be important for Coldheart because a lot of her skills depend on the accuracy, so never really going to need that max HP. Now for the second tier, I also went with crit damage. Also, in my opinion, going to be a must get. Definitely want to get this. You can end up making a couple decisions with your second choice, but the added crit rate and crit damage is just too good for masteries. I also ended up going with Grim Resolve, which is increased damage inflicted by 5% when attacked with 50% HP less. I think this is another good substitute here. Honestly, might even be more useful. Increases damage inflicted by 5% when attacking with full HP, especially if you have champions with like shield sets or you're able to stay at full HP a lot. This is probably going to get more benefit. You could also end up getting this one here, Shield Breaker, if you're attacking a lot of enemies with shields, if you're focusing on that aspect of the game. So honestly, that's a big toss-up between your second choice and the offense mastery. I think they're all actually reasonable. Now I went with this one here in the support tree, increases accuracy by 20 when this champion has no skills on cooldown. It's okay, it's not great, but I just don't think that there's really anything else too good as an alternative. You can pick this one here if you use her like as a campaign farmer and you find that she's taking a little bit too much damage. This one here, there's no reason to take it, and this one here, there's no reason to take it as well. So now for the third tier, I ended up going with Life Drinker. I almost always take this because it's kind of like a mini lifesteal set as a mastery. Heals by 5% of the damage inflicted when attacking with 50% HP or less. I also ended up going with Single Out, which is increased damage to targets with less than 40% HP by 8%. Nice little damage boost to pretty much everything when they get a little bit below half HP. Really useful for the clan boss as well, if you end up attacking clan bosses when they have 40% HP or less. Now, I think these are also other good substitutes depending on what you use her for. Increases speed by 6 for each enemy killed by this champion, stacks across each round. If you use her again, specifically where you know she's going to be getting a lot of kills, that's a good substitute right here. It increases damage inflicted by 8% for the first hit. Going to be good if you know you're going to be using her for situations like the arena. I don't think too many people use her for the arena, but you know, that's going to be the use for this mastery right here. Now, when it comes to support, has a 30% chance of increasing the turn meter when a debuff cast is removed or expired. Going to be very useful because she does have debuffs, so you are going to get benefit from this. Increases accuracy for each enemy alive. This one is decent because she does actually really benefit from accuracy a lot. You're definitely going to want to make sure she does have the right accuracy so she gets her full benefit. So that one's not too bad either. Increases the turn meter by 10% when a buff cast by this champion is removed or expired. I don't think she actually has any buffs. Let me double check here. Heal reduction, accuracy, poison. Yeah, no buffs, so not going to gain any benefit from that. So definitely don't want to end up getting it. And the last one on this row, which is shields. No no reason to take that. So then we move on to the next row. Increases damage inflicted by 6% when attacking targets with higher max HP. This one is really useful, just going to be a straight up DPS increase. I pretty much almost always take this one here. Let's see, substitutes. Increases damage for each dead ally. I almost never take this because you're relying on things dying, which I just generally don't like to do. This one is okay if you're doing things specifically where you know you're going to be doing a lot of damage to enemies at once, like maybe campaign farming or something like that, but I still don't take this skill very often. And then this one I almost never take. Now in the support tree, there's a lot of really good ones in this list here. I almost always like to take this because I do use a lot of basic sets a lot. Increases the set bonus of basic artifact sets by 15%. This is another good one as well. Has a 5% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random skill by 1. This one is, I guess, okay for arena because you can decrease the turn meter a little bit, but I still don't take it too often. And this one here is not going to be useful for us. So, and then the second to last row, increases the damage inflicted by the champion default skill by 2% each time it's used, up to 10%. This is a great mastery. I almost always take it, especially on champions where they're going to be doing a lot of damage with their skill 1 auto attack. This is another decent one if you know you're going to be getting kills, but the main reason why I took this is so I could end up getting the Giant Slayer because I needed it to get to there. Increases damage by 6% in the arena and 3% in all other locations for each enemy killed by this champion, stacks up to 12%. Let's see alternatives. I don't like Blood Shield. I almost never end up taking it. And then this one right here, I guess it's okay if you know you're going to be getting debuffed a lot, but still you're relying on a negative thing to get a positive effect, which I just typically end up staying away from. So, and then in the support tree, I ended up taking, has a 30% chance to extend the duration of any debuff by 1 turn. That's going to be great, especially considering how many debuffs Coldheart has. Those poisons, definitely going to get a lot of benefit from this. I think that's going to end up being the only reasonable choice. I guess you could take Sniper because it has the chance of placing debuffs from skills or artifacts, but if you have enough accuracy, you really shouldn't end up needing it. And that's probably going to end up being the best choice there. And of course, in the last tier, you have Giant Slayer, super important for Coldheart, especially considering her skill 1 is going to end up attacking 4 times. You're going to get an insane amount of benefit from Giant Slayer. So that's what I did for the Masteries. Of course, I pointed out some alternatives as well, but this has worked very, very well for me. So that's generally what I end up going along with. So now that we have Masteries out of the way, let's talk really quickly about gearing and stats because it is going to be important that you get it right for Coldheart. And I think this is probably going to be one of the big mistakes that a lot of people make with this champion is because a lot of people don't gear Coldheart out depending on that 3rd skill. Now, remember, when it comes to your DPS, you're going to get a lot of your DPS from your Heartseeker skill because it's based off of enemy max HP. Now, because of this, what you're going to want to do is you're going to really want to focus on crit rate and crit damage. Because the skill scales so much based off of enemy max HP and not so much based off of attack, you're not going to get quite as much benefit from stacking an insane amount of attack in comparison to stacking an insane amount of crit chance and crit damage. So that's why I tried to go with as much crit rate and crit damage as I possibly can. Now you'll notice that I don't have 100%. I'm actually just a little over 70%, and that is, again, because on that Heartseeker skill has an extra 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit. So you can actually plan out around this part of the skill, and you only need to end up getting to 70% crit because of that. So you don't even need to get to 100%, which makes gearing her out even easier. As you can see, I have over 200% crit damage, around 200, and I think that's 227 or 232% if I can even do math properly, which it doesn't seem like I can right now. But that's going to be very important. I have lifesteal as well because she is very squishy. Not really a lot of survivability. She's an attack-based champion, which is one of the negative things, but she's got so much other good stuff about her. Of course, she's going to end up being an attack-based champion, but that means that she's not really going to have a lot of HP. She's not really going to have a lot of survivability. So if you can end up fitting any kind of additional survivability on her, that's going to be great. Remember, you don't have to go crazy stacking the attack because this skill scales off of max HP so well. So, you know, even if that means adding a little bit of extra HP or defense or survivability by sacrificing a little bit of attack, you're not going to lose as much DPS as you actually think that you might. So your priority when it comes to boosting her damage is going to be crit rate and crit damage and not attack. So you can kind of end up planning around that. Besides that, just the basics, of course, speed is always going to be nice. Accuracy is going to be very, very important. You're going to need more accuracy if you still haven't finished off your Great Hall. So just the basics when it comes to that sense. Now, let's see here. I want to just go through a run of Minotaur 15 because, first of all, it's quick. I don't want to do anything that's going to take too long, just so you guys can get a little bit of an understanding of that skill that I was talking about and why it is so good. So this shouldn't take too long. I think Minotaur 15 ends up taking me around 1.5 to 2 minutes. Make sure that I actually have Coldheart, and you'll be able to get a sense of an understanding for that third skill when it chunks away a really huge amount of HP on the actual boss itself. So another great thing is she's not going to be bad for trash waves because a lot of her skills, she has that first skill that attacks 4 times at random. Now you're not going to know exactly what enemies that it lands on, but over the course of a battle, that's not really going to be too important in most situations. She also has that second skill, which is just a flat-out AoE, which is going to be really nice. And of course, that third skill, Heartseeker, is going to be super useful for single-target battles where enemies have an insane amount of HP. So you'll see here over the course of the short battle, which again, I think Minotaur 15 never takes me more than 2 minutes or so. I can even end up doing it quicker if I actually take away a few champions. I know that seems weird, but some champions that I have in this formation actually take too much time doing whatever it is that they offer to the table in comparison to what they actually do. So I think if I take away like Roz and Scarhide and even High Khatun, I think I can actually end up making my runs even faster. So, of course, Coldheart is going to be extremely, extremely useful in Spider as well. There's all the debuffs as well. The heal reduction, which again is not just useful for the actual heal reduction, but it's going to be really useful because it allows you to apply those poisons as well. And you can see she does take a lot of damage though, so she is squishy, which is why having any kind of additional survivability. There's that Heartseeker, as you can see, 250,000 right there, but it just chunked away a massive amount of HP on the actual Minotaur. This ends up being a huge amount of damage when you get to bosses that have even more HP, like for example Spiders 20 or Dragons 20 or any kind of aspect of the game where bosses are going to have even more HP than Minotaur. If you have even more crit damage, it can get even crazier, and of course if you have a bunch of champions that apply the proper buffs and debuffs, then it can be even more damage. So that ability right there could easily get to hit over 1 million if you actually manage to synergize the right stuff with it. So very, very powerful. The fact that it scales based off of enemy max HP makes that skill extremely, extremely strong. So to round things off here, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is just going to end up being the overall pros and cons. Now, of course, for Coldheart, because she is such a good rare champion, there's definitely going to be more pros than cons, but there are still a few negative things about her. So first of all, let's start off with the good. Insanely good for a rare. Definitely stacks up to most epics, and I would say she's definitely better than a good amount of the legendaries in the game. That is how good she is for a rare. Of course, that insanely good skill 3 based off of a max HP scaler. If you actually take a look at any skills that are based off of max HP, pretty much any champions that have skills like that are going to be really big hitters. And I think Royal Guard is another one. Very, very powerful skill. Easy to book because she only actually needs rare books, which is really great. You don't have to worry about legendary skill books, which are really hard to come by, or epic skill books, so that shouldn't really be too big of a problem. Really good in many aspects of the game. So just like Kale, one of the big spotlight features about Kale is he's very versatile. He's not just good as a campaign farmer. You can end up using him to be a good dungeon farmer and even really good in the clan boss. Very similarly with Coldheart, she's not just going to be good for spiders or the clan boss, she's also going to be good in things like dungeons because of that third skill. So she's a very versatile champion. She's a Void champion as well, which is no affinity issues, which is nice. Now, unfortunately, that is also going to be one of the cons, is because she is a Void rare. She is still a rare, but the fact that she's Void means she's going to be more difficult to get than other rares, so won't be able to get her from Ancient Shards. You'll have to be able to get lucky eventually and get her from a Void Shard, but hopefully if you end up playing the game for long enough, if you end up doing a couple dozen Void Shards, you should end up getting her eventually, hopefully. Probably not going to be very defensive as well. Now, you can end up building her to have slightly more defensive stats, but overall, she's an attack champion, and she's probably going to be pretty squishy, which is why I tried to set in that lifesteal and get a little bit of extra survivability when you can, because if she dies, then you're not going to be doing any damage with her, and it can completely mess up your dungeon runs based on your team. And of course, because she is a rare as well, even though her skills are absolutely insane, because she is still classified in the rare category, her stat scaling is going to be a little bit worse than epics and a fair decent worse than legendaries, but still overall, for a rare champion, she is absolutely insane. Definitely, in my opinion, the best rare defense or offensive champion, best rare DPS champion, and in my opinion, in the top 3 overall. So with that being said, that is everything that you guys probably need to know about Coldheart. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this first champion spotlight type video. So I know it was a bit longer, but I really wanted to go over everything in detail in a video like this. So if you guys did enjoy and you want more rare spotlight videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Really appreciate all the support, everyone. Thank you once again for all the subscribers. We are getting close to 25,000 actually. If you want to help out, tossing a quick like means more than you can even imagine as well, so thank you to all of you guys who do that. And of course, more Raid Shadow Legends videos, guides, tutorials, and all that fun stuff should be popping up on the screen right about now, so feel free to check those out. Getting close to 100 raid videos on the channel, so feel free to check out the Raid Shadow Legends playlist for all those videos. Have a great day, everyone. Take care, and until next time, this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.